Hello. Very good evening to one and all. Today, Tirthesh Patel, am here to welcome you all for Did You Get It? Workshop we have today is about Git, GitHub, and version control. We all have at least heard about GitHub and worked on it a fair bit too. Git has been helping us with solutions for problems for various solutions like hosting of code, hosting of source code, managing the source code, and reviewing the source code too for about 13 odd years now. And to educate us more about the version control aspect of GitHub and Git, and also to tell us about the nitty gritties of HacktoberFest, that is an open source competition. We have today with us Andrea Griffiths. She has been working as a senior product manager at GitHub since 2018. She has also worked with Amazon. She's a super fan of open source coding and also a community connector. Andrea, ma'am, welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause, not physically, but at least in the chat, to Andrea Griffiths. Ma'am, I'd like you to take the stage now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. TRH, for that lovely introduction and for the round of applause. I felt it. It reached me all the way in Florida. So, again, thank you so much. I am super grateful to be here today with all of you. I don't take your time or attention for granted. I know you all had a long day of school and you have been in lectures all day. And so now you're like, oh gosh, I'm going to join something else and learn even more. So I do appreciate that. I was very grateful for it. So super excited to be here because we're going to talk about things that are so excited. And even if you are, let's say you are someone who's been working with version control systems or someone who's been working in GitHub already, I hope that every single one of you listening or viewing can actually take something away from this presentation. So we're going to talk about a few things. And of course, thank you to the organizers for inviting me. We're going to talk about what is Git. I'm going to give a tiny overview of version control. And then we'll talk more about GitHub. And it's not going to be a deck with a million slides. I promise that. I believe in demos, not memos. So we're going to just jump onto my screen and then we'll see where it takes us. So thank you so much. Everyone who's listening to this presentation on my Twitter space, if you like to see the video, you can join on YouTube as well. And it's github.co /VIT, CSI-VIT. And I'll post it again on the chat as well. So in any case, thanks again. So I don't know, Tornish, you want me to go ahead and just get started or
Yes,
shall
ma'am, you can.
we? All right, yeah, let's get to it then. So again, thank you for the kind introduction. I am Andrea. I am a PM at GitHub. Particularly right now, I'm focused on the developer relations team, and I'm also working on a lot of our international expansions. So it's really exciting work because I get to do things like this, talk to all of you. So we're going to talk about how to use Git in GitHub, what is version control. We're going to talk about open source because, of course, this is the season. We are on HacktoberFest, and HacktoberFest, for those of you who are not fully aware of what it is, it's a full month celebration of open source and also an excellent time for you to either start contributing to a project or just give a huge thank you and round of applause to all the maintainers that make the software that we work with every single day possible. So after that, I'm going to share my top 3 most favorite things that GitHub can do for you to enable you to have a good Hacktoberfest experience. So we should just jump right to it. So let's talk about Git. Some of you might have been working with version control systems before. For other of us who are older and have been tinkering with things and hacking for a while, I do remember how difficult it was before version control when you had to do things at a physical level, literally passing the little disk around. The times have changed, thank goodness. So we're able to collaborate at scale, and now we can just make software better for everyone. So Git is a big component of that. So the tools that make up the core Git distribution are written in C, Shell, Perl, and TCL. And Git itself is available on GitHub under git/git. So if you want to get into more of the details of the version control and how it works and how you can actually contribute to the Git project, be sure to check it out. So what is Git? Git, again, distributed version control. And for those of you who might be new to version control is basically just a historical record, right? So it's a way that you're able to save all the changes to everything you're doing, regardless of what it is. So whether you're using GitHub to write documentation to track the status of a project, or simply to keep track of all your things or to-dos, using a version control software like Git allows you to kind of reflect back. You're sort of an archaeologist, a historian, wrap all in one, and that you can go back and see and read the comments and figure out why you made the decisions that you make when. And then if you break something, you can always revert it. So it's very important as software developers that you understand the concept of distributed version control beyond the aspect of collaboration. Even if you're a team of one, having a component of version control is going to save you a lot of headaches and tears, I might add. So it is a distributed version control software. What does that mean? That means that every single developer who is working with a Git repository and has a copy or a fork of any repository can work locally on their machine. So this is great when you have, let's say you are going to a region where you're not sure that you'll be able to work on the cloud or not have a lot of connectivity. You can always just fork that repository, have it on your machine, and then do some work. And then the next time that you're connected, you can push those changes, which is a really great way to work and collaborate, and a great way to use that commute too, if not while you're driving. So whether or not you work on version control before, there are some things that you should know before getting started with Git. And this is going to sound a little bit trivial, but it's worth mentioning. Branches are super cheap. So what does that mean? They don't cost anything. You can do all this work. It's not going to cost anything. What I mean by that is that they're lightweight, so that you can have a ton of branches in your projects. I mean, obviously, there is certain naming conventions and certain structure that is sort of best practices, but you shouldn't shy away from just having as multiple branches as you have, and make sure that you get those commits often so that you can constantly test what it is that you are working on. So when you create a new branch on Git, you're not actually changing anything to the code or to the document per se that you're working on. What Git does is it just sort of creates a pointer, right? So I like to think about it as a Polaroid. So it takes a quick snapshot picture of the state of that content, whether it's code, words, whatever it is. It will take a quick snapshot for you and reflect it in a hash. It will tell you this is exactly what this looked like at this point of time. So it's going to keep all the commits, which commits are just changing any changes that you make into your code or documents. It's going to keep those commits for each branch separate from the main repository or the main original base content until you explicitly tell Git, okay, please go ahead and merge these changes. I'm ready for it to go up into the main line of work. So that's important to remember. Another thing that I like for you to take with you is that, as I mentioned earlier, the Git repositories can be connected, so you can work locally on your machine, or you can connect to a shared repository. Very important, so you can push and pull changes to a repository, and then you can easily collaborate with others. And then, of course, it's designed to handle everything. So from very small projects to very large projects. One of the beauties of Git is that it does this with a lot of speed and efficiency. And it's typically small and super fast. So remember that Git is also local. You can pull the entire repository, make a fork, clone it, and we'll go over some demonstrations on how to do that. And then one of my favorite things about Git, of course, that is explicit. Nothing actually gets done on Git until you give it that command. So you control everything that's happening with your code. Important point, because it won't do anything until you tell it to, right? So it's not going to be like constantly auto-saving like a Google Doc. It's going to wait for you to give it the command so that it knows exactly when to update the source code. So It will wait for you to give that signal. I'm ready for the camera. Okay, here is a snapshot and go. So that is Git on a nutshell. This is a very, very high level definition and history of version control systems. Again, the best way I can describe it is you no longer have to wait for people to physically bring you the code that you need to work on. You can just work on it asynchronously and then upstream it and push it to main when you're ready. So that is Git. If you want to learn more about Git, the Git documentation is absolutely fantastic. And I will share some resources with you throughout this talk, and then I'll actually drop them on a repo so that you can get a better idea of exactly what Git is. All right, so that brings us to the topic of collaboration and GitHub. So what is GitHub? Well, GitHub is the home for open source. It's a co-hosting platform for collaboration, and it's going to let you and others work together in projects. A super important point of Git that I failed to mention in the previous slide is that commits, although they are immutable, meaning that you can change them, or well, technically you can, but it just basically creates a new commit. So it will be attached to a new hash. What this means is that if you make a mistake, so if you're working in a project together and you make a mistake, you can always roll back. So you can always tell your Git or GitHub, hey, this is not okay. Let's go back to that last Polaroid that you took. And I think we've all been there where we get into such complex problems that we kind of need just a clean slate. So very important to use version control in those occasions. So those benefits cannot be overstated because it's not only an incredible tool for collaboration and very powerful for collaborating in teams, but it also is going to create a safer environment for not only the project, but the code. So keep that in mind. You can always roll back. Basically, yes, you can break things, but Git empowers you to fix them. So let's move on to GitHub. Back at it is a co-hosting platform for open source. I hope that everyone listening or viewing actually has a GitHub account. And if you do not, you are very welcome to simply open an account. It's free. And now we have a ton of tools for developers. Since you are students, I would be remiss if I didn't mention applying for the Campus Expert program if you are interested in community leading. And of course, the Student Developer Pack, which has got just thousands and thousands of dollars worth of licenses, credits for you to either start your career in technology or just continue building and hacking the things that you like. So GitHub is built on top of GitHub. It's focused on developers primarily. So Git is excellent and an excellent way of utilizing version control for your software development. And it's primarily for code because it doesn't handle non-binary files like videos or photos very well. So what does that mean? That primarily the focus of Git and GitHub is code. But I think as years go by and we have so many smart people working on these problems, we're actually getting a lot better about the way that we handle those. So GitHub allows you to unlock the creativity of all the developers in your team, but also foster that sense of community collaboration so that you can work together. And again, if you're a team of one or not, you can use GitHub. It's going to help you. I know it's impossible to remember the context of every single decision that you make when you're writing code. And this is where GitHub comes in and makes it super simple for you to keep track of that. So you can remind yourself and you don't have to write a million notes. They're all right there, saved forever. So GitHub itself concentrates in three things: building the technology platform. It's the home for all developers, the home for open source. We are here to empower developers to write the best code, collaborate in the best possible ways, and then grow their code bases, scale their apps and products in a way that is suitable for collaboration and for making their projects even better. The other focus at GitHub, which I am particularly keen on, is nurturing the community for developers. There is so many sources of information in GitHub. So if you think about GitHub and you immediately think Git and you immediately picture in the terminal and you're thinking code, there is a ton of resources published on GitHub. If you have never used Explorer or Topics, simply to just take a little drive, go and meander about and see if you're interested in any particular field. I can almost guarantee that there is some information for it, whether it is machine learning, whether it's data science, whether it is artificial intelligence. whether it's building games, regardless of what you're into. I guarantee you GitHub has a repository with some resources or even some source code that you can then, if it's public, fork and then collaborate from there. Make sure you give attribution and give a shout out to the folks who created it originally. And again, it's all about community. It's all about collaboration. GitHub is focused on providing access and opening that community opportunity. I think one of the most impactful things personally when I first started working using GitHub, not working at GitHub, but using GitHub, is how you have the possibility of have no borders and no barriers. Here I am talking to you. In a moment, we're going to go to a repo that I've created for this demonstration, and you are joining, whether you are in Mumbai or Russia or South Korea or in the US, wherever you are, we get to collaborate, we get to work together. And that is the beauty of GitHub, that it just kind of breaks those barriers and allows you to collaborate so that you're working with the best of the best, regardless of geolocation. So key components of GitHub commits, no need to overthink it. Commits are basically individual code changes. So think of it, if you wrote a note and then you went in and either scratched that note or wrote another note underneath it, that's what a commit is. It's just an individual code change. Issues can be many things. Issues can be a bug report, something that's not working right with whatever code you're looking at, or it can be a feature request. And especially during the month of HacktoberFest, we see a lot of folks taking ownership of issues to help the maintainers of these humongous projects that sometimes have just thousands upon thousands of issues. So I am here to remind you to be very thoughtful and kind in your Hacktoberfest activities. I know the allure of getting a t-shirt is like super exciting. And I know I was definitely super eager when I first got started. Oftentimes gave myself more headaches than it was worth by not reading the how to contribute guidelines. So before you jump in and you're like, let me open an issue for that, I really encourage all of you to take a scroll, use the search bar, and figure out if this is something that's already either being talked about or if it's something that maybe has been assigned as a won't fix, so that we keep the maintainers happy. And this month is all about kind of lining up the load and not just adding to it. So keep that in mind. Don't open issues just for the sake of issues. You're here today, so I think you're all keen on learning and understanding how it works. So I'm sure you won't be doing those things. And then, of course, bug reports. Sometimes when we're looking at something, so whether it's code or anything really, if you're living in it, you're breathing in it, you miss the obvious. Excellent tool of GitHub that allows collaboration, and fresh pair of eyes usually make a difference. So that's what issues are. Then we go into the concept of pull requests, and then we go back to that Polaroid, right? So I took the picture, and the picture I made this face, and then I changed it because I wanted to frown, and now I like that picture better. So a pull request is basically the way that we're going to integrate that last picture of my frowning into the main source of code. So this is the way that you tell Git, I'm ready for this to go up to main, and this is going to be the new source of truth. And then releases is just package versions of applications. And this is extremely important if you are working on a program that you plan to scale and iterate on. So if you notice maybe by cruising through GitHub that you've seen some like version 1.1, 1.2, and 100 and what have you. Again, it's so key to have that good naming convention, especially when you're talking about releases. And there's actually a lot of tools now that do this work for you. GitHub Actions. There is a ton of tools. I'll be sure to share some of those resources with you. So these are the 4 key components of GitHub, things that I would love for you to remember. Yes, there are other version control platforms out there. Yes, you don't need to use GitHub to use Git. You can use Git right from your terminal. But GitHub does include a lot of added bonuses that not only from a collaboration standpoint, but enable you to write better, faster, and more secure code. So keep it in mind. And of course, I'm here as a community person. So, hey, I want you to use the best possible tool and what makes you work at your best. So if it's not GitHub, that's totally fine. But I think that if you give it a chance and check out some of the extras, the things that make GitHub such a great platform and the home for all developers, you'll be pretty content with your results. All right, awesome. So now let's go, and I'm gonna go ahead and just slide the screen over real quick because I want us to take a look at how to do some of these things that we were talking about. So I have a repository that I've created for this particular presentation. And I want to share it with you because this is something that actually I just started using myself, even though it's been there for a while. And let me just slide this tab up. Here we go. And so this is a GitHub page, and you can build GitHub pages for free and just about anything, really. As you can see, this is one that it was just like quickly spun up to dump some resources. And right now there is only 2 there, but I promise by the end of this presentation, there'll be more because this is actually something that we're gonna work on together. So you see the way that it's rendered. It's just basically a super simple Jekyll theme. I haven't used Pages in a little bit of a while, and was so super psyched to see that now that component is incorporated in GitHub. So you no longer have to worry about styling and adding those CSS files. And you're someone that that this is my design sense. Literally the most basic of Pages. But now Jekyll actually has the themes right there, so you can select multiple themes, and I'll show you how to do that in a bit. So one of the things we're gonna do is go take a look at GitHub itself and take a look at how we arrive into this particular page. So this is just a super basic repository that I spun up. And for the folks that are listening on Twitter, this is a good time for you to github.co/CSI-V as in Victor IT. And basically that's just going to point you to the YouTube where this live stream is happening. So I left most of the description here because I thought that they were actually very relevant to the conversation we're having today and to understanding what is a repository. And more importantly, because documentation often is sort of neglected, and we start thinking about documentation a lot of times after we already ship or we were shipping what we've been working on. So you lose a lot of the context. You lose a lot of those key decision-making points where the moments where you decided to pivot into something else or you switch from one stack to the other. It is so important to document these things. So I tend to go to the tragic if I walk outside and get hit by a bus and it's a project that is important, especially it's a project that is relevant to open source and a lot of people depend on, then somebody else, one of you can join and actually it's explicitly explain how to contribute, what the project is about, and take on from there. So key part of collaboration and writing code and participating in this wonderful open source ecosystem is to document things. I don't like to write. You might be, wow, but you talk a lot. I'm super pedantic vocally, but my documentation is absolute crap. It's a work in progress for sure. So you can see how in this particular tutorial gives you how to build your first website. And for example, we push and publish that first original site from the resources. And this is a public repo. I encourage every single one of you. I would love to get our little pages to have a lot more resources other than the 2 that I've topped there, but we're actually going to do it together in a moment. But I want to go ahead and open that. So you can see the composition and the structure of the repository here, super simple. So if I wanted to add a file, of course, because this is only simply a GitHub Pages, it doesn't have a lot of structure. But if you look at some of the more elaborate and bigger repositories, maybe some for open source, you can see how the structured code and that naming convention that is so important works. So things that I've mentioned already, issues, there are no issues here. So maybe all of you watching can join in and just open an issue on this repository. Again, it's under github.com/Andrea Griffiths 11, which is my username on GitHub, /CSI_VIT. And open an issue, open a new issue and tell me, let's see, maybe tell me your Twitter handle and I can give you a shout out later. Maybe we can do a little context or something fun for everyone later. So pull request, you can see there is no pull request because I was not being a very solid practitioner and just pushed everything to main, but I will not do it again because now I'm sharing this repository with all of you and I want to make sure that we all have that line of communication and you're able to see exactly how we got there. Of course, GitHub Actions. I was a little bit experimenting to see if I can create an action that will update my GitHub pages. And then I ran out of time. So more to follow on that, but it's really cool that you can actually access the marketplace directly from here. So there is thousands of GitHub actions that folks have already worked on. So for example, there is a Jekyll action. There is actions to deploy to the different CI/CD. There is linter actions. There is Python actions. So I definitely encourage all of you to take a look at the actions marketplace. You can do a lot of automating of the mundane, to call it that, so that you can spend time doing some of the things that are more exciting to you, whether that is writing code or whatever it is. So definitely take a quick look through actions. And then another super favorite feature of GitHub is we have project boards, and we have project boards for everything. There is a ton of templates that are already there for you, whether it's just a super basic Kanban board that you just want to, maybe you're trying to apply some agile practices to the way that you develop and write code. Having a project board is so key. You can link to issues, link your PRs to it. So there's actually a way to automate them, so that if I open an issue that resolves an item, or I push a pull request as a proven merge that resolves an item that was a to-do on the to-do list of the project board, I don't even have to go back there and do anything to it. It's already automatically move into that done column. So this is super cathartic and satisfying, especially if you're working on very complex projects, just to see and keep track of your progress. Of course, you can have a wiki, and every single repository you have the option to create this page where, it's very explicitly say here. Let me zoom in a little bit so that everyone can see it, but it's gonna show us the current status of this project, and it's gonna help us document software better. So please keep that in mind as you kind of dabble into this world. Then security, every single repository has all of these features that you can enable. GitHub has been definitely a leader of industry when it comes to providing opportunities for developers to write secure code and to take ownership of that writing progress from the very first line of code you write. It used to be that we all thought about security as an afterthought, but now more and more developers are understanding that, things might break. And yes, there is still things happen. Like, wasn't it Twitch yesterday that became open source for like 5 minutes because someone hacked them? But there are so many things that you can do proactively to prevent your code from, whether it's a definite attack by a malicious actor, someone just really wants to come and do something bad to the work that you're putting out, or the actual, most often than not, situation, which is that we just make mistakes because we're human. And I think we can probably raise our hand if we ever like pushed something that included a secret or a token or something that should not be out in the public. So having this code scanning alerts, having the dependable alerts, having the security advisors, all of these tools, having them enabled in your repositories is going to save you time and headaches. And it is best practices. So I encourage every single one of you to take ownership of that security aspect of whatever it is that you're doing. And again, going back to, if you're, well, Andrea, I opened this repository, but I don't plan on storing any code in it. I'm just going to use it to keep track of, I don't know, classroom, keep track of a thesis project that I'm writing. You should still enable this. There is a lot of components, and it's helping us all in total create better features and just be more security reminders. So keep that in mind. Another super awesome portion of the repository in the way that it is sort of displaying this graphic user interface is that we can see our insights. And I love this. In this repository right now, you can see it's very sad. There is only one little author, who's me. Maybe after all of you come in on my repository and think about, open an issue and add your Twitter handle, or we'll show in a minute how to add resources to that Pages site that we built super fast, then I should be able to start seeing who is contributing. I should be able to start seeing the community aspect, which is so important. There is already a preset template here of the things that are going to make your projects so much more community user friendly, but also more secure. And There is a ton of things that you can do. And I love this checklist because it definitely walks you through it. So it'll tell you to add a description, and you can say how I'm being a really bad practitioner here because I didn't apply any of those principles. Very important to add a code of conduct, especially if you're planning to enable discussions and you are going to be opening it up to participation and collaboration from your peers. You might want to set the expectation of what is allowed and what is not. And again, regardless of what type of code or what type of work you're doing on GitHub, that is super important. Of course, contributing guidelines, super encouraging to all of you. Please stop for a moment, read those contributing guidelines before you start opening issues and submitting PRs, especially during the month of Hacktoberfest. The contributing guidelines, super basically, is going to be a document, is on a markdown file that tells people this is the thing and this is how you can help me with the thing. And before you help me with the thing, I would like for you to do these X, Y, or Z. This is an important space where you can add, if you have a Discord instance, if you have a Slack channel, if you want people to talk to one of the maintainers of the project before they start interacting with your repository. So this is just a space for you to explain a little better about how folks can reach you and get started. And then choosing a license. We can spend a full hour talking about licensing. GitHub has a really handy tool. I'll go ahead and open it here because I think this is a very important part of understanding how code collaboration works. So there is actually a preset tool that asks you a couple of questions and then helps you sort of decide what license will work best for your project. I don't have a license on mine, so we can go ahead and just take a quick look at it and see. Maybe that can be one thing that we can do together today, so you can see how easily it is to add a license to the project. And here is that preset information that's going to help me understand. And this is from the open source guy, which is an amazing resource that was actually created by GitHub with participation from the community. And it's been translated to multiple languages, all by the community. So it's open source on open source, which is super meta. But here it gives you like a small description of every single one of the licenses. Like, for instance, it can explain, okay, should I do something other than MIT? I feel like we see that apply to a lot of projects. And it's super important that you just take a quick look at this and have a good understanding of what it is that it means to add a license to your project, right? So again, very simple to do. I lost my tab. Let's go back here. So now we are on the legal side, open source. You can go ahead and just take a quick look and understand better how you can choose the license, and it tells you exactly how to do it. And it actually gives you a quick description of the specific license and what it does and what can you apply it for. So very simple. I'm not going to go ahead and add, well, actually, let's do an MIT license for this repository so that you can kind of get an understanding of the things that an MIT license do. And super important, it gives you the year. So you have to adopt this to the root of your project. You just ask, it automatically repopulates it. So it's so simple to do. You can see the limitations, the permissions of it. This is pretty much MIT licensing. I see it as I want to share everything. I don't care what you do with it. I'm sure that the legal people, of course, watching this are going to be like, no, that's not what it means. But again, I'm not a lawyer, but if you saw something that you're just looking for collaboration and you definitely want to just have it in the open and let people repurpose that content, that's a good selection. Super simple. All you have to do is review and submit. And then you can see how the licenses now apply, and it's gonna go ahead and pre-populate that template there that explains exactly what the license is. This is a really important factor of using that MIT license that is as is, meaning if you come and fork this amazing repo with one contribution and you're expecting something else to happen or something is broken in it, I make no warranties. So that's why, another reason why it's important, especially as people start using your projects and integrate them as part of their projects. It's super important to have that sort of disclaimer there. So you can see here I have, and I need to change this domain. I have two different options. I can either commit it directly to the main branch, which I am not going to do. For the purposes of demonstration, I'm just gonna go ahead and create a new branch. I mean, this commit message is very explicit. Yes, you just I'm creating a license, but in an effort to be better about my commit messaging, I'm just going to add a quick line. So let's say it's demo for VIT. And then you can see how automatically it's giving me the option where it'll create that new branch file for the commit, and then it'll start that pull request. So let's go ahead and commit that new file. Another super exciting feature of GitHub that is relatively new is the draft PR. And so remember, if we go back to the original context, we were talking about how you took the picture, you make the face. I took another picture, I made a different face, but you know what? I'm not sure if I'm ready to show that to anybody. Or maybe I just want to reach to my brother, Shodipo, who's listening. Hey, Shodipo, and let him take a look at that picture and figure out if it's a good one or not. So simple way that I can do this without making a lot of noise is just to select to create a draft pull request. So what is a draft pull request? It's just basically going to say, I am not ready for you to review this. Oh my gosh, it's not even ready for you to even consider merging it, but I just want you to take a look. I use this a lot. I use this a lot regardless whether I'm doing things on right here on .com. So like using this visual, beautiful interface, or if I'm on the terminal, I do use that a lot because it just gives me an opportunity to go back and review some of the things. So I'm sure I'm not pushing even more exciting, crappy things like sometimes I do. So you can see here, if I just click on draft pull request and I submit it, it's doing all the things that Git is doing for you, is doing it on the back end. So I need to come up with a little graph so that we can see exactly what's happened. But you can see how it explicitly says that it's still a work in progress. It cannot be merged. And now that you looked at the picture and you decided, you know what, that's actually not bad. And yeah, go ahead. I think I'm ready. I'm ready for review. All you have to do is click ready for review, and GitHub is going to do the work for you. It's going to convert that into a pull request that is ready for review. And then I can request specific reviewers. So right now I can request up to 15 reviewers on this repository. Of course, if you're working in teams, sometimes you have a team alias. And so you can actually just request a review of multiple teams there. So that's a super simple way. You can say, yeah, it's great. I'm going to go ahead and merge it and confirm it. And you can see how it's going to automatically pop that up. Another super exciting feature when it comes to cleanup, you don't have to do anything else. You can actually preset your repositories to where they delete branches automatically after you have merged your pull request. And then again, I mean, I know it sounds kind of scary. Ooh, do I really want to do that? But you can always go back to that snapshot in time. And so if I need to, I can always revert to. But for the purposes of keeping things tidy, and because my OCD will drive me absolutely bananas if I don't do it, I'm going to go ahead and delete that branch. So voila. Oh no, but I really hated the face. You see how easy it is to restore a branch. And then we're back to it. So absolutely super simple, just low barrier to entry to use the github.com interface. But there are other cool and exciting things that you can do, whether you use a editor like, let's say, VS Code, or if you want to use the GitHub CLI on your terminal, if you're one of those people that prefer to not have all these things laid out in front of you. There are so many ways that you can just make sure that you're working in the best possible environment, what helps you work better, right? So I'm going to go back to the code on the main page because I want to show you one of the cool things that are happening and one of the cool ways that we can edit our repositories and our code now. And let me just real quickly bring back my presentation so that I can talk a little bit about HacktoberFest and show you some of the things that we're going to be demoing in a moment. And I know this is a ton of information and I'm going really fast. So feel free to drop any questions you have either on the chat. I hope someone is watching that on YouTube. And if not, I am Ala Colombia on Twitter, and what the cool kids say, my DMs are open. My DMs are always open. So if it's something I can help with, I'm happy to hear from you. Or better yet, go into that repository, open an issue, let me know what you want to know. And then maybe I can find somebody else to collaborate there with you. So These are three things that I want to focus, and I want each and every one of you to take away with you today, because these three features of GitHub can help you have an amazing Hacktoberfest experience, level up the way that you're collaborating, whether it's for Hacktoberfest or not, just things to know and that are happening and that are growing in GitHub. So the first one being GitHub CLI. So if you don't know, because again, switching context, enemy of productivity. If you're someone who loses attention very easily, like I do, sometimes you just need to be heads down and not have all the things in front of you. So GitHub CLI can do just that for you. So simple to install. I just took a quick snapshot of my terminal and the terminal command, which is just shout out to the homebrew maintainers, because see, open source for the win, they make it super easy for you to install these projects right from the terminal. And so you can see what the command is for the Mac pre-install GH. So simple. GH started super basic. You could just create an issue, kind of take a look at your code source, code base, and not do a whole lot more. But that team has been just absolutely innovating. Like they had been on the forefront of like, let's make this the tool for all developers that do not necessarily want to use a GUI. And so now you can do a lot more things. You can view, you can create, you can clone, you can fork repositories. So remember how we talked about if you want to work in your local machine and you just want to make those changes, maybe on the go, maybe just for your own learning experience, you can do all that right there from GH, from the GitHub CLI. Now you can close pull requests, you can view pull requests, you can review and merge them, which is amazing. So some of the steps that we did earlier, that we did them on the GUI, you can actually do them right there from the terminal. And the documentation, shout out to this team, because it is absolutely fantastic the way that they documented. There is actually a command GH help that will bring up a list of all the commands that are available to you and brief explanations of every single one of them. So it's super user friendly. Lately, it's been incorporated into a lot more things where you can actually now review workflows from GitHub Actions right there from the CLI. So keep that in mind. Another thing that I'd like to share with you is GitHub Discussions. And I want to say I did not have it enabled on our repository, but maybe we go ahead and do it now instead of going through the slides. Real quick, and for the sake of recording, I will go through this. What is GitHub Discussions? GitHub Discussions is yet another tool for collaboration. It's a way for you to have conversations about the project itself, or to discuss ideas and roadmap with other collaborators of your repository. So I like to think of it as a Discord instance inside my repository, because it allows me to talk one-on-one with the maintainers. It allows me to put information out there. So it differs from an issue in that it actually, the way that it presents the communications, you can see them, they're threaded. So it's really great. I particularly enjoy it. I can tell you that we use discussions a lot in GitHub to build GitHub. A lot of the things that we use when it comes to like, okay, what is the source of truth? Like who can we ask that can make a decision? All those things that happen on discussions, which are great. To set up discussions, super simple. All you have to do is go to your repository, go under settings, and then you're just gonna get started with discussions. You can set it up. Discussions now, you should be able to enable it in any repository that you would like, public repository, of course. And it actually has a really handy template that will tell you the things that you need to incorporate as part of the discussions. So because you are already a super code steward and a much better practitioner than I am, you know that you already have a code of conduct that applies also to this discussion, so that you know you have a very explicit ask of the type of conversations that people can have in this space and how they should all be, or maybe you don't want them all to be relevant to the code. So whatever it is that you want to talk about, this is a good space to set that expectation too. All you have to do is set up discussions. It will drive you into that little template. It's going to make nerds like me happy around the world. It does support styling with Markdown, which is amazing. And for not lazy, but the efficient developers, drag and drop, which I love. And then that's it. 3 clicks and you're ready. Your repository is now enabled for discussions. So you can go ahead and just start talking to your contributors, collaborators, etc. So I will enable that. So maybe we can continue growing as a community together, and like, let's see what discussions spark into that little demo repository. Okay, and then finally, this is my favorite thing as of late. You might have seen this. It was announced a few weeks ago. And I want to say there were a lot of tweets going about what happens when you hit the dot and you are inside a repository. And so if you heard all the buzz about Codespaces, if you already use Visual Studio as your main editor for code or for life, this is just a really super unique way to create a collaborative environment for you to collaborate with yourself, of course, and just bring up that text editor without having to do anything on the machine. So without having to preload the settings. I know oftentimes I am guilty of this. I am very particular about the way that I do things, and I prefer to have my settings safe. I want to walk in and have the environment waiting for me ready to work. And it can be something as simple as making sure that I have that super massive font, like the granny style font, so that I can see everything, or it can be about where I want to save certain things. So using ThatDev is really exciting because it can save you a lot of the hassle. So we go back to that public repository, and you can either change the extension on the URL, but I want to do it the super fun way. So all you have to do is hit the .dev. Now, all of you who are going to come into this repository and participate, you will have to fork the repository first, and then you can go ahead and create this editing environment. So I'll go ahead and punch that little period, and you can see automatically it's already loading up, setting up a text editor that's going to allow me to sync my presets with my Visual Studio Code. So all of those finicky things that I was mentioning earlier, how I need to have this mega granny font, and maybe I like a certain theme, maybe the way that I want to be able to work on my code and coding structure is different and specific. There is, voila. So it's automatically load up this local on your environment. What does this do for you? It doesn't cost you anything, right? And it brings the power of VS Code right there in front of you, regardless of where you are. I find this particularly useful if you are on the go. Let's say that you are somewhere away from a reliable, I don't know, maybe reliable infrastructure. Maybe you're not sure that you want to work on the cloud. Maybe you're not sure that you can open multiple tabs. I mean, to save resources, to do many things, this is a great idea. And then, of course, it's mega rad. It renders Markdown automatically. You can see how it's already giving me a preview of that Markdown page, which is really cool, because if you are someone who is working on documentation, maybe that your contribution to our little pages project, for example, is going to be, you just want to add an extra link. You just want to add a different style. You can input all of that and automatically preview it. And that's pretty cool. So you can see how the coding structure, so everything that is on my repository is going to be displayed right here. And from here, from this .dev experience, I can make changes. I can push, pull, I can clone, I can create draft pull requests. I mean, it's just a very powerful thing that you can do to go from just ready to code to coding in just a few seconds. You saw how quickly that spun up. So again, it's magic. All you have to do is just hit that period. And I love the ability to render automatically the previews. Also, you can have a terminal view here too, which is really exciting, especially when you're trying to check on the status of your project. And I have to make it a tad bit smaller so that we can see it. Let's see if I can make this bigger. And scroll all the way down. Let me go back here and see if it'll let me see it. And you can see how I can change actually the appearance and the command palette of it, which is really cool. Debug the console, terminal, there is a shortcut there, but of course I'm looking at the wrong place, so I can't see it. I apologize. I'm trying to make this as big as possible, and it's just giving me a little bit of problems, but trust me when I say you can see it there. And then, of course, you can go back and just take a look at all the changes. You see how here is just a raw markdown file. And then if I want to preview it, all I have to do is just hit this little tab. And now it's in that split view. And let me try and slide this a little bit so you can see what it's actually going to go ahead and render for me. So super simple way to get started in development, and everything that you're doing here is going to be reflected on the changes on your repository. If you take a look at the code structure, it's exactly the same. But that's just going to load up that editor for you. So you can see how everything here is fundamentally reflected right there on your open editor. So I want us to switch branches into the GitHub Pages branch because we can do this together. We can just quickly take a look at that markdown file and just see how we can update it. So you can see that here on the Pages branch, and this is a branch that is loading that that page that I show you with this super basic Jekyll theme that it just has 2 tiny resources. Great resources. The Learning Lab actually is very interactive and it will walk you through all of the things that we talked about today, from creating your first issue to creating your first pull request. And it, of course, it's free. So super encourage everyone to go through the Learning Lab catalog and figure out what do you want to learn. And regardless of where you are in your coding career, there is something in the Learning Lab for you. There is something you can learn. So some of the popular courses are listed here. This, of course, if you want to learn more about Git and GitHub, super simple one. If you want to learn more about actions, this takes you actually through the build of you like write your first YAML code and deploy your action, and then some tips on communicating using Markdown, which is amazing. So great resource. Another amazing resource is going to be on LinkedIn. Actually, I had not seen that before, but there is actually a really cool tutorial on Git and GitHub. I know there is a ton of information out there and you have to kind of be selective, or you just water hose of information and not sure where to start. So just keep it basic. Think about what exactly it is that you're trying to accomplish. If what you have a hanker for right now is learning how to use actions, then go for it. Do that tutorial on doing actions. Find a patchwork. I know one of my colleagues, Brian, actually has a interactive patchwork that he's done before, not a patchwork, but a craft work, focus on actions. And for you to contribute, all you have to do is add your name to a particular instance on his repo, and then it walks you through. You can see how it's built and everything. So there is tons of resources there. I encourage every one of you, if you found something cool on Git or GitHub, whether it's a YouTube video, if it's free and open source and able to be shared, then please drop that link right here. I think after the talk is over, I encourage someone, maybe someone from the team can open a PR to add the YouTube URL here so that everyone that visits can see all the recordings. So back to the editor using that ThatDev experience. Another really cool thing about this is that it actually remembers your settings. So I don't have to continuously be opening this back and forth. And let's see if I can just zoom it to actual size so that you can take a look. And there is my terminal. I knew it was there living somewhere. So for this, I need to continue with the environment that I want to run code. So I can start here, and then I can go ahead and continue working on VS Code or open a Codespace. For the purpose of the demonstrations, we don't need to do that today, but just keep that in mind. And so I want to go ahead and switch to the Pages branch so you can see how easy it is to, well, if I wanted to create a new branch, I could do it right here. It's very explicit. Or I can just go ahead and switch to that Pages branch, and then you can see how it's going to go back and load it up for me. And now we're able to see that one repo, the CSI underscore VIT, and it's going to bring down that markdown file. I hardly ever tell this to stop showing me. Every time that I open Visual Studio Code, I feel like I can learn something from some of the tips or like the workthroughs and fundamentals, or it actually suggests things based on some work that I've been doing, which is really cool. So, I know this can be sort of annoying, like a started screen for everyone, but I actually get a lot of value from that. Okay, so if we go to our CSI-VIT resources, you can see how I have this too. Super simple to add another one. All you need is just a little bit of markdown. And then from here, you can go ahead and add it. So I want to add like 3 exclamation points because I'm very happy to be here. and happy to be sharing this time, showing you some of my favorite things. And you can see how automatically it's already telling the source control. So it's so smart. It's already saying, oh, hello, something's changed between the last snapshot that I took of this when I opened and spun up this editor, and now you added something. And then let's walk through how we can incorporate those changes. So simple. All you have to do is add your commit message. So I am going to add something like I'm happy with exclamation points. So more exclamation. Of course, when you're writing very serious code, for one, you want to make sure that you spell it correctly. Apologies, I'm missing my big keyboard. And then also that you add a commit message that really reflects an understanding of why you're making a change. That's going to help people, especially during Hacktoberfest. If you are at the point where you're creating pull requests, so important to have that clearly and just very pedantically explain, so that when that maintainer sees it coming, they know exactly where you are going and what issue is solving. And then you can also close different issues and then make all those changes to the project board that I mentioned earlier from here. So I'm happy. And then I just hit enter. And now, so you can see how it's directly committing to that GH branch on GitHub, which is exactly what I wanted to do, because that is the branch is actually going to do my build. And that's it. It is literally that simple. I want to scroll down here and let me see if I can zoom in a little bit so that you can see this bit. It's not going to let me do it. So I'll try and spotlight it because I want to make sure that you can see. Oh, well, let's do even one better. Let's bring up the terminal so that you can see that how you can do this. And of course, it doesn't have to be the terminal right here. You can just literally just open up your work environment and just do it from there. Just change directory into that particular file. This is under the assumption that I have a local copy of this repository. And if I don't, I can go ahead and pull it. So that's great. Okay, so super simple. I already added this. I'm excited. All I have to do is I'm ready to create my pull request. And you can do that very intuitively right here. You can compare the changes. It's going to bring you back that snapshot on timeline. You know, oh yeah, this is exactly what you did. So now that I added that commit, we should be able to go back here into our GUI. And I just want to bring it up just for demonstration purposes so that you can see how it's already made that beautiful update for us. Because again, I'm not being a very good practitioner and I just went ahead and pushed that to main directly. Best practice is you would create a pull request and ask for the review, and then it gets merged. But you can see how here it gave me that commit message and it's loading up the hash. And I love this, that you can have a diff view that actually allows you to see exactly what's changed. You can see how here my 3 little exclamation points are reflected. And the difference between the commit hash, because of course, all it's doing is using that compression algorithm to create that so that Git knows exactly this data corresponds to that very moment in time. And then, of course, because this is a GitHub Pages, doing that change should have triggered a build of my GitHub page. Oh, look at this. Congratulations, Roctopus. Oh my goodness. I love it when this happens. Yay. I'm going to send you a little something. I'll find you here. I'm so excited you just did this. This is amazing. So we had someone actually contribute live as we were talking about it. If we go back to the file change, he just included, here's a link to the event. So great. Thank you very much. That is super. So I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, it looks good. Let's go ahead and enable GitHub Pages because I want us to see sort of see a preview of the build when it happens. So thank you again. And of course, typically the comment there should be, it looks good to me, or you are amazing. But for the sake of time, and I know we're coming up on time, we'll just go ahead and keep it super simple. But thank you so much. That's so exciting. I'm so grateful that you did that. That's awesome. Okay. And then let's go back to that same GitHub Pages file here because I want to scroll in. And now you can see how our tiny little project is not just mine anymore. It has one more contributor. Thank you so much. And you can see how now the environment is active, and that build, since it's so little, it should be done. But I want us to take a look back and just click on the deployment itself, and hopefully it will just quickly load it up. I think you might have committed it to the main branch versus the GitHub Pages branch. Fear not. I just need to make the GitHub Pages branch a default branch, and then it will render in this space. So, but that's it. That's about as basic as it gets in collaboration there. I'm so excited. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's what happens. I can resolve that. So it's no issues at all. But thank you so much for including that. And I also see an issue. You folks are awesome. Yay. Awesome. I don't know what your favorite YouTube video is, so I'm not going to click on it live, but I'll be sure that I will check it out. So I hope it's a tutorial on Git or GitHub. So let's give it a little bit of a label here. This is also a best practice, right? So let's say there is automatically a preloaded set of labels that you can use, but you can always add your own. We use this a lot in project management to tag different stages of a project, whether it's by fiscal year, by quarter, by month of the year, etc. So it's a really incredible tool to use. And then this is something that I want to take a look at. So let's just call it documentation for now. And that's going to go ahead. And I'm going to assign it to myself so I remember to go back and take a look at it. So perfect. Well, I mean, I think we've done a few things. I would love for us to take a quick look at that community file now, because I think it's going to look a little bit different. And actually, for the insights, it might take a bit of a second to load up, but you can see how like I already merged Rocktopus's pull request. So he's actually showing as one of the contributors. And then one other key thing I wanted to share, if you take a look at the health and the community profile. So these are the standards that are recommended by GitHub. And really, they're excellent standards. This was very well thought out. So you can see how now we have a license because we added the MIT license together. So there's a check mark here. There's a README. So I still have a ton to do here to make this a good community standard met repository. But for the most part, we're rocking and rolling. So I encourage all of you to go ahead and drop your links of the things that are making Git and GitHub super easy for you, and then just share them over the community. So I'll go back to the presentation. I don't think I have any more slides. The last slide that I have is just find me on Twitter. I'm happy to share if there is something that I don't know how to do specifically. I'm very focused on security, advanced security features now. Talking about vulnerabilities, dependable, talking about how to set up those notifications. Sometimes I know we live under a mound of emails, and there are ways that you can streamline those so that you're not bombarded with every single alert. And then talking about bounty hunting, I love that. CoQL, any open source security related that project, I'm super keen on hearing about. Or just open source period, or maybe you just want to just say hi. Happy for you to do so. I'm Ala Colombia on Twitter. Huge shout out to Carlo Gilmar, who is an amazing human that does the absolute best slides and has created some of this artwork for me. And I think that is it. So I don't know if either Terhish or Minish is coming back. Oh, there you are. Perfect.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. So there have been a few questions in the chat. We'll just go through them.
Okay. Yeah, so I wasn't following the chat, and I'm sorry about that because I don't know open. So I don't know if you wanna drop those live. So I actually, and I'm sorry, I feel like I went way over time. It's so hard to like get all the exciting things in 1 hour. But I'm happy to answer maybe two, and then if there are more, I encourage everyone to go to that repo, Andrea Griffiths 11/CSI-VIT, and just open an issue there, and I'll get to them. Maybe not right away, but I will definitely make sure that I get to it. Is that okay, Tarish?
Yes, sure. It's nice enough that you have been explaining it in simple terms. It was a ramp up every minute. You started off from explaining us what GitHub was to we went on to learn about licenses and stuff. So it has been really nice. And also to the participants, we have also posted her in LinkedIn and Twitter information. Also the GitHub repository information in the chat. Do check it out. And if you have any issues, you can contact her. Thank you, ma'am, for getting time out of your busy schedule for us. And we'll be wrapping it up. So, if there are any final questions, if anyone wants to ask, then we can go through them. Otherwise, this will be it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, I want to make sure that I invite everyone to GitHub Universe as well, because it's going to be absolutely free this year. So go to the Universe website, githubuniverse.com, and you do have to register to access all the webinars. There's going to be a ton of stuff there that is going to be like, this is not just another conference. You're going to walk away with a lot of tools for you to work on GitHub to improve the way that you write code. So definitely encourage everyone to check it out. I want to do a little bit of a watching, listening party for the keynote. Last year's keynote was so great. Our CEO, Nat Freeman, does such a good job. And so I know it's going to be something fun. I'm not in the circle of trust and all the things, but I feel like it will be a good use of their time if you're able to tune into the keynotes. And that's happening on October 27 at starting at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. If you bring up that question one more time, I'll read it.
Yeah,
All right.
sure. Okay, so Hiram has a question. It's about the branches. So, what happens to the branches when they get deleted? Because the
They go into
question
it.
came up pretty early on. So,
Oh, got it. Yeah. So I wonder if, remember, I wonder if you were there when we restored that branch. So we deleted it, right? Because I'm a little bit OCD and want to keep things tidy, but then we were able to restore it. So, I mean, the lamest and most high level way I can explain it is it goes into Ether, but it's right there. It's still saved. You still have that hash. And then if you need it again, as simple as clicking reverse from the user interface, you can do it. Of course, you can do all these operations on the terminal using only Git. You don't have to use GitHub to do these things. You can use the Git command to restore the branch as well. That's just like such a convenient way for you to do that. So it goes into the universe. So I can say for that, if you want to dig a little bit deeper into the actual specifics of what, like exactly what the algorithm, how it does, just keep this in mind when you are, let's say you made a change and you deleted it. So if I had that one picture and my face wasn't perfect, and this is the hash that's associated with that picture, and then I took another one and hey, good lighting, it's better, and I want to replace it, you're actually not replacing something. You're not like, nothing's going to have the same hash, right? So it's going to run through that same computation algorithm and it's going to give you a new space that holds that particular set of data. So it's not technically replacing, even though it kind of is. It's more like adding to and then just presenting it to you in a way that is actually the updated version. I hope that helps a little bit, but I'm happy to go more into details. Maybe we'll talk about it in the repository, or I can drop some basic Git commands on an issue too, so that you can test it out on your own local terminal. Okay, cool.
okay, sure. So guys, if you have any more doubts or any more requests or anything you want to learn about, you can always, we have a special demo repository created by her for us. You can put in issues on it. And thank you, ma'am, for joining us today and getting time out of your busy schedule for such a lovely session. And
Thank
also to the
you.
participants, it was great having you guys here. There will be a feedback form link posted around in the chat, and you'll be having it posted on your groups as well. Do fill it, and because that is how you'll be getting the certificate. And that's our CSI signing off for today. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.